The storm outside matched the one brewing in my gut as I stared at that text message. Out with the girls tonight, don't wait up. Ivy. 27 years old, my wife of 3 years, and she still dotted her I's with hearts like some teenage cheerleader. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Darren Locke, 45, and I paint houses for a living. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills on our modest two-bedroom in this dying upstate New York town. My hands are permanently stained with primer and latex. My back aches every morning, and my knees creak when I climb ladders. But I'm honest work, which apparently isn't enough for my beautiful young wife anymore. The wind howled against our kitchen window, rattling the old glass in its frame. Ice pellets struck like bullets, and the power flickered twice. Perfect night to be out with the girls, right? Except Ivy's tone felt different lately. Colder, more distant, like she was already halfway out the door even when she was sitting right next to me on our worn couch. "You're too old to understand my life," she'd said earlier, not even looking up from her phone. That stung more than I cared to admit. I heated up leftover meatloaf and mashed potatoes, Ivy's favorite, though she'd barely touched it at dinner. The woman who used to devour my cooking now picked at her food like it might poison her. Maybe I should take this to Caleb, I thought. My son from my first marriage lived across town in some rundown apartment complex, working warehouse shifts and barely scraping by. 23 years old, 6'2", and still figuring out life. At least he appreciated a home-cooked meal. I wrapped the food in foil, grabbed my keys, and headed out into the storm. The drive to Caleb's place took 15 minutes through empty streets lined with snow-covered cars and flickering streetlights. This town had seen better days. Boarded-up storefronts, cracked sidewalks, and houses that needed paint jobs I couldn't afford to do for free. Caleb's apartment building was a 3-story brick nightmare with thin walls and cheaper rent. I'd helped him move in 6 months ago, carrying his secondhand furniture up those narrow stairs while his roommate Mason sat on the couch drinking beer and offering useless directions. I climbed to the second floor, balancing the food container while fishing for my phone to text him. That's when I saw them through his living room window. Red high heels, expensive ones, the ones I'd bought Ivy for our anniversary last month. My heart stopped. I moved closer to the window, praying I was wrong, praying those weren't the shoes I'd watched her slip on 100 times. But there they were, kicked off carelessly next to Caleb's coffee table, and there was the matching red dress, crumpled on his floor like discarded wrapping paper. The food container slipped from my hands and hit the concrete walkway with a dull thud. Through the thin apartment walls, I heard laughter. Ivy's laugh. The same one she used to save for me, now echoing from my son's bedroom. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, ice pellets stinging my face, my world tilting sideways. Then I did something that surprised even me. I walked away, didn't pound on the door, didn't scream, didn't make a scene, just turned around and left. The drive home was a blur of rage and humiliation. My wife, my son. In his bed, probably laughing about the old fool who worked himself into exhaustion, painting other people's houses while they screwed behind his back. How long had this been going on? Weeks? Months? Every girls' night suddenly made perfect sense. Every time Ivy suggested I visit Caleb, every time she knew his work schedule better than I did. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the truck for 10 minutes, engine running, heat blasting. Mrs. Dorsey's curtains twitched in the house next door. The old bat probably saw everything that happened on this street, filed it away like some neighborhood gossip database. Inside, I poured 3 fingers of whiskey and sat at my kitchen table. The house felt different now, poisoned. Every photo on the wall, every shared memory, every plan we'd made, all of it contaminated by what I'd seen. But I wasn't going to be the victim here. Not Darren Locke. I'd been kicked around enough in my life, by my first wife, by bosses, by this whole damn town that forgot what loyalty meant. This time would be different. I opened my laptop and started making lists. Phone records, bank statements, credit card bills. If Ivy wanted to play games, she'd learn that this old dog had some new tricks. The storm outside began to calm, but the one inside me was just getting started. Morning came gray and bitter, matching my mood perfectly. Ivy's side of the bed was still empty, sheets cold. She'd probably spent the night at Caleb's, wrapped in my son's arms while I lay awake planning their destruction. I made coffee strong enough to strip paint and started my research. 3 years of marriage meant 3 years of documentation, joint bank accounts, shared credit cards, phone bills with both our names. Amazing how much evidence people leave behind when they think they're being clever. First stop, our phone records. Ivy's number showed up on Caleb's bill 47 times last month. 47. Late night calls, afternoon texts, even a few during my work hours when she knew I'd be up on a ladder somewhere, trusting her completely. The front door opened around 8 a.m. Ivy walked in, wearing yesterday's red dress. Makeup smeared, hair disheveled. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who'd spent the night somewhere she shouldn't have been. "Morning," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Girls' night ran late." I'm sure it did. I kept my voice level, casual. "Coffee's fresh." She poured a cup with shaking hands. Guilt, maybe, or just exhaustion from her extracurricular activities. Either way, she was nervous, which meant she wasn't completely heartless. Yet. "I'm going to shower," she said. "Take your time." While the water ran upstairs, I copied her phone records to a flash drive. Then I called Gary, my work partner and the closest thing I had to a best friend in this town. "Gary's House of Pain," he answered. That's what we called our painting business. Not officially, but it fit. "I need a favor," I said. "Shoot." "Can you handle the Morrison job alone today? I've got some personal business to deal with." Gary had been painting houses for 30 years, survived 2 divorces, and had 0 patience for bullshit. "What kind of personal business?" "The kind that involves my wife and my son." Silence on the other end. Then, "Jesus, Darren, you want to talk about it?" "Not yet, but I will soon." "You need backup, you call me. I don't care what time." That's why Gary was my friend. No questions, no judgment, just solid support when the world went sideways. After Ivy left for her bartending job at Murphy's Tavern, I drove to the courthouse, filed a request for our financial records, started the paperwork for legal separation. The clerk, a woman about my age with kind eyes, walked me through the process. "You'll need documentation of any adultery," she said quietly. "Photos, witnesses, evidence of the relationship. I'm working on that." Next stop, Mrs. Dorsey's house. The old woman answered her door in a pink housecoat and fuzzy slippers, eyes bright with curiosity. "Darren, what brings you by?" "I wanted to ask about your security camera," I said, pointing to the device mounted above her garage. "The one that faces the street." Her expression shifted, became more guarded. "What about it?" "I think someone's been using my driveway when I'm not home." "Maybe you caught something on camera?" Mrs. Dorsey studied my face for a long moment. She'd lived on this street for 40 years, watched families come and go, seen enough drama to fill a soap opera. She knew exactly what I was really asking. "Come inside," she said. "Let me show you what I've got." Her living room was a shrine to long-gone relatives and ceramic cats, but her computer setup was surprisingly modern. She pulled up security footage from the past month, fast-forwarding through hours of empty street. "There," she said, pointing at the screen. "Tuesday night, around 11. Ivy's car in our driveway, but she didn't go inside. Instead, she walked across the street to where Caleb's beat-up Honda was parked. They embraced, kissed, then drove off together in his car. "Wednesday afternoon," Mrs. Dorsey continued, clicking to another file. "You were at work." "Same thing. Ivy arriving, meeting Caleb, leaving together." The timestamp showed 2:30 p.m., right in the middle of my workday. "How many times?" I asked. "At least a dozen, past few weeks." I wasn't sure if I should say anything. "Can you copy these files for me?" She handed me a flash drive. "Already done. I figured you'd be asking eventually." God bless nosy neighbors. My phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. "Dad, can we talk? It's important." I stared at the message for a full minute. The kid wanted to confess, probably. Clear his conscience before I found out on my own. Too late for that, son. "Busy today," I texted back. "Maybe this weekend." Let him sweat. Let them both wonder what I knew and when the hammer would fall. I spent the afternoon at Murphy's Tavern, nursing a beer and watching Ivy work. She moved behind the bar with practiced efficiency, laughing with customers, playing the role of the friendly neighborhood bartender. Several men flirted with her. Construction workers, truckers, local businessmen drowning their sorrows in cheap whiskey. She flirted back. Not seriously, just enough to earn better tips. But it made me wonder who else might be enjoying my wife's company. Was Caleb the only one, or just the most convenient? Rita, Ivy's best friend and fellow bartender, worked the other end of the bar. 29 years old, bleached blonde, with the kind of hard-lived face that came from too many late nights and bad decisions. She and Ivy whispered together during slow moments, probably sharing secrets about their latest conquests. I finished my beer and left a $5 tip. Ivy smiled and waved goodbye, the same smile she'd given me 1,000 times before. The same smile she probably gave Caleb when he left her bed this morning. That night, I sat in my kitchen with all the evidence spread across the table like pieces of a puzzle: phone records, security footage, credit card statements showing hotel charges I'd never authorized. The picture was crystal clear. My wife was cheating with my son, and they thought I was too stupid or too trusting to figure it out. They were wrong about the stupid part. I poured another whiskey and started planning their education. Friday morning, I woke up with a plan and a headache. Ivy was still asleep, probably dreaming about her next rendezvous with Caleb. I made coffee, showered, and drove to my lawyer's office before the sun cleared the horizon. James Patterson, no relation to the writer, had handled my first divorce 15 years ago. He was expensive but thorough, the kind of attorney who dotted every I and crossed every T twice. His office smelled like leather and old money, which was ironic since most of his clients were working-class folks trying to protect what little they had. "Darren," he said, shaking my hand. "Been a while. What brings you in?" I laid out everything: the phone records, security footage, credit card statements, even photos I'd taken of Caleb's apartment building. Patterson studied each piece of evidence with the intensity of a jeweler examining diamonds. "This is solid," he said finally. "Adultery case, clear documentation, witnesses. She won't get much in the settlement." "I don't want to just divorce her, Jim. I want to destroy her." Patterson leaned back in his chair, studying me over his reading glasses. "Legally speaking, what does that mean?" "It means I want her to lose everything. The house, the money, her reputation, her friends. I want her to understand that actions have consequences." "The house is in your name only, correct? Bought it 5 years before we met. She's got no legal claim." "Joint bank accounts? I can move that money today." Patterson smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. "Then let's discuss strategy." An hour later, I walked out with divorce papers and a plan that would make Ivy's life very complicated, very quickly. First stop, the bank. I emptied our joint checking and savings accounts, transferred everything to a new account in my name only. $23,000. Not a fortune, but enough to hurt. Then I drove to the house and changed the locks. All of them. Front door, back door, basement, even the shed where I kept my painting equipment. If Ivy wanted inside, she'd have to ask permission. I left the divorce papers on her pillow with a note. "You wanted freedom? Here's your first taste." Then I waited. Ivy came home around 6, still wearing her Murphy's Tavern uniform. I watched from the kitchen window as she tried her key, then tried it again, then started pounding on the door. "Darren, open this door right now." I took my time answering, made sure to look calm and relaxed when I finally appeared. "Problem?" I asked through the screen door. "What the hell is wrong with the locks?" "Nothing. They work perfectly." Her face was flushed, eyes bright with anger. "Let me in. This is my house too." "Actually, it's not. Check the deed." I handed her the divorce papers through the screen, watched her face change as she read the first page, then the second, then flipped through the evidence photos Patterson had included. "You snake," she whispered. "Funny thing about that phrase," I said. "Technically, you're the one sleeping with someone's son." She tried to push past me, but I held the door firmly closed. "You want to come inside? You can call your lawyer. Work out visitation rights." "This is insane. You can't lock me out of my own home." "My home. My name on the deed, my name on the mortgage, my money that bought it. You're just a tenant whose lease expired." Ivy's phone buzzed. Probably Caleb, wondering where she was. She glanced at it, then back at me, and I saw the exact moment she realized how much trouble she was in. "We can work this out," she said, her voice softer now. "It doesn't have to be like this." "You're right. It didn't have to be like this, but you made your choice." "Darren, please." I closed the inner door and walked away. Let her stand on the porch in the cold, calling my name like some lovesick teenager. Let the neighbors see exactly what kind of woman she really was. An hour later, she was gone. Probably running to Caleb's apartment, crying about the mean old husband who wouldn't let her have her cake and eat it too. My phone rang around 9. Gary. "Heard you had some excitement tonight," he said. "News travels fast." "Mrs. Dorsey called my wife. Said there was quite a scene at your place." I told Gary everything. The affair, the evidence, the divorce papers. He listened without interrupting, occasionally grunting in sympathy or disgust. "Jesus, Darren. Your own son?" "Stepson. But yeah, it stings." "What's your next move?" "I'm going to make them both understand that betrayal has a price." "You need help with that. You know where to find me." That's why Gary was my friend. No lectures about taking the high road, no advice about forgiveness and moving on. Just practical support from someone who understood that sometimes good people get pushed too far. Saturday morning, I woke up alone in my house for the first time in 3 years. It felt different, emptier, but also cleaner somehow. Like I'd finally aired out a room that had been closed up too long. I made breakfast and planned my day. Time to let the rest of the town know exactly what kind of people they were dealing with. Murphy's Tavern on Saturday night was the social hub of our dying town. Construction workers, factory guys, single mothers looking for companionship, and lonely old men who had nowhere else to go. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business and gossip spread faster than wildfire. Perfect venue for Ivy's public education. I arrived around 8, wearing my best jeans and a clean flannel shirt. Looked like any other regular customer settling in for a night of drinking and complaining about life. Ivy was behind the bar, but she'd seen me walk in. Her face went pale, and she whispered something to Rita. I ordered a beer from Rita instead of Ivy. Let my wife stew while I made small talk with the other customers. Heard you had some domestic troubles, said Tommy Morrison, a roofer I'd worked with a few times. Wife locked you out? Other way around, I said, loud enough for half the bar to hear. Caught her cheating. The conversations around us faded. Nothing destroyed a bar's atmosphere faster than fresh scandal, and everyone wanted to hear the details. No shit? Tommy leaned closer. With who? I glanced at Ivy, who was desperately trying to look busy. My son. The silence was deafening. Even the jukebox seemed to quiet down, waiting for the next revelation. Your son? This from Martha, a waitress at the diner down the street. Caleb? 23 years old, living in that dump across town, screwing my wife while I'm out working to pay for her lifestyle. Rita appeared at my elbow, trying to do damage control. Darren, maybe you shouldn't... Shouldn't what? Tell the truth? I pulled out my phone, showed them the security footage Mrs. Dorsey had given me. Want to see them kissing in my driveway? The crowd pressed closer. In a town this small, entertainment was scarce, and a real-life soap opera was better than anything on television. Ivy finally found her voice. You're drunk, she called from across the bar. Don't listen to him. I'm stone sober, I replied, but I've got phone records showing 47 calls between you two last month. Want me to read some of the text messages? Her face went from pale to green. She knew exactly which messages I was talking about. The explicit ones, the ones that left no doubt about what they were doing together. This is harassment, Rita said, but her heart wasn't in it. Even she was curious now. I stood up, raised my voice so the entire bar could hear. My wife of 3 years has been sleeping with my son. They've been using my house, my money, my trust to carry on their affair. I just thought you all should know what kind of people you're serving drinks to. The bar erupted. Everyone talking at once, asking questions, demanding details. Ivy fled to the back room, probably to call Caleb and warn him that their secret was out. I finished my beer, left a 20 on the bar, and walked out into the cold night air. Behind me, the gossip machine was just getting started. By tomorrow morning, everyone in town would know the story. By next week, Ivy wouldn't be able to show her face anywhere without people whispering. My phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. We need to talk, now. Murphy's Tavern, I texted back. Your girlfriend's working. 20 minutes later, he showed up. 6 feet 2 inches of confused young man, still thinking he could charm his way out of trouble. He found me in the parking lot leaning against my truck. Dad, I can explain. Don't. I held up a hand. Don't call me Dad, and don't insult my intelligence with explanations. It just happened. We didn't plan it. Bullshit. 47 phone calls don't just happen. Hotel rooms don't just happen. This has been going on for months. Caleb looked like he might cry. Good. Maybe there was still some conscience left in him. I'm sorry, he said. I know how this looks. You know how it looks? It looks like my son decided to screw my wife. It looks like 2 people I trusted took everything I gave them and threw it back in my face. She said you didn't love her anymore, said you were just roommates. And you believed her? You believe that justified this? He had no answer for that. What answer could there be? I want you to stay away from me, I said. Away from my house, away from my work sites, away from anywhere I might have to see your face. You made your choice. Live with it. Dad, I don't have a son anymore. I got in my truck and drove away, leaving him standing in the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I saw Ivy come running out of the bar, probably to comfort him. Let them comfort each other. They were going to need it. Sunday morning brought the first retaliation. Someone had spray-painted "Old Man" on my tool shed, probably thinking it would hurt my feelings. Instead, I laughed. If that was the best they could do, this was going to be easier than I thought. I called the police, filed a vandalism report, took photos for evidence. Officer Martinez, a decent guy I'd known for years, shook his head as he wrote up the complaint. Sorry about all this, Darren. Heard what happened at Murphy's last night. News travels fast. Small town. You want to press charges? Damn right I do. Martinez looked uncomfortable. We'll investigate, but without witnesses or fingerprints, I know who did it. Knowing and proving are different things. True enough. But I wasn't relying on the legal system for justice. The law was just one tool in my toolbox, and I had plenty of others. That afternoon, I drove past Caleb's apartment building. His Honda was parked outside, and I could see Ivy's silhouette in his living room window, playing house in a dump that probably cost more per month than they could afford, especially now that Ivy's sugar daddy had cut off the money supply. I parked across the street and called Caleb's landlord, a guy named Peterson, who owned half the rental properties in town. Pete, it's Darren Locke. I need to ask you about one of your tenants. Which one? My son, Caleb, apartment 2B on Elm Street. What about him? He's been having loud parties, disturbing the neighbors, drugs, underage drinking, property damage. I thought you should know. Peterson sighed. I'll look into it. Thanks for the heads up. No problem. Just being a concerned citizen. Caleb's lease was month to month. One noise complaint, one surprise inspection, one excuse to evict, and they'd be homeless. Let's see how romantic their affair looked when they were sleeping in her car. I was just getting started. Monday morning, I went back to work. Had to keep up appearances, maintain my income, and besides, physical labor helped me think. Gary and I were painting the exterior of a Victorian house on the good side of town, the kind of place Ivy always dreamed of living in but would never afford now. You look like hell, Gary said, mixing primer in a 5-gallon bucket. Didn't sleep much? Worried about the divorce? Planning the next phase. Gary stopped stirring and looked at me. What kind of next phase? I told him about the vandalism, the police report, my call to Caleb's landlord. Gary listened while we worked, occasionally nodding or grunting approval. You're playing chess while they're playing checkers, he said finally. Something like that. What's the end game? Complete destruction. I want them to lose everything. Money, housing, jobs, friends, reputation. I want them to understand that betraying someone has real consequences. Gary was quiet for a long moment, focusing on his brushstrokes. You sure that's what you want? Once you go down this road, there's no coming back. They already made that choice for me. Fair enough. What do you need? That's why Gary was my best friend. No judgment, no lectures about forgiveness, just practical support when I needed it most. Information, I said. Caleb works at Morrison Warehouse, right? You know anybody there? My nephew Danny. He's a shift supervisor. Think he'd be willing to share some gossip? Gary smiled grimly. For the right cause? Absolutely. That evening, I got a call from Danny Morrison. Turned out Caleb had been showing up late, calling in sick, generally acting like someone whose personal life was interfering with his work performance. Nothing fireable yet, but enough to put him on management's radar. Want me to make some noise about it? Danny asked. Not yet. Just keep me informed. You got it, Mr. Locke. Family loyalty goes both ways, you know? Except when it doesn't, I thought. Tuesday brought more developments. Peterson, Caleb's landlord, called to report that he'd received multiple noise complaints about apartment 2B. Loud music, arguing, people coming and going at all hours. I'm going to have to issue a warning, he said. One more complaint and they're out. Hate to hear that, I lied. But rules are rules. That afternoon, I drove past Murphy's Tavern and saw Ivy's car in the parking lot. Her shift didn't start for 2 hours, which meant she was probably inside drinking and complaining to Rita about her terrible situation. I parked across the street and waited. Sure enough, Rita came out for a smoke break, looking stressed and tired. I walked over casually, like I just happened to be in the neighborhood. Rita, how's it going? She tensed up, probably expecting another public confrontation. Darren, what do you want? Just wanted to apologize for Saturday night. I was upset, said some things I probably shouldn't have said in public. Her expression softened slightly. It's been hard on everybody. I'm sure Ivy's been struggling. This whole thing is complicated. Rita took a long drag from her cigarette. She's a mess, crying all the time, can't focus at work. Maybe you two could work something out. I'd like to, but she's not making it easy. Moving in with Caleb, turning him against me. It's like she wants to destroy what's left of my family. She's not trying to hurt you, Darren. She's just confused. Confused about what? Whether sleeping with my son was right or wrong? Rita flinched. Even Ivy's best friend couldn't defend that behavior. Look, I continued, I know you're loyal to her. I respect that. But you should know that this situation is going to get worse before it gets better. Ivy's made some choices that are going to have serious consequences. What kind of consequences? Legal ones, financial ones, the kind that affect everyone around her, including her friends. Rita's eyes widened. She was starting to understand that supporting Ivy might not be in her best interest. I'm not trying to threaten anyone, I said. Just giving you a heads up. Sometimes it's better to distance yourself from a sinking ship. I walked away, leaving Rita to think about what I'd said. By the time she finished her cigarette, she'd be wondering whether defending Ivy was worth risking her own job and reputation. Wednesday evening, I was painting trim in my kitchen when someone pounded on my front door. I looked through the peephole and saw Caleb, looking angry and desperate. "Open up," he shouted. "I know you're in there." I opened the door but left the screen door latched. "What do you want?" "You need to stop this. Stop calling my landlord. Stop spreading lies about me at work." "I haven't lied about anything. You're trying to destroy my life." "Your life was already destroyed the minute you decided to sleep with my wife. I'm just making sure everyone else knows it." Caleb's face was flushed, his hands shaking. "She loves me, you know. She never loved you. She told me." "And you believed her? The same woman who lied to me for months, who used my money to buy hotel rooms for your little adventures? You think she's telling you the truth? It's different with me?" I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Kid, you're 23 years old. You think you're the first young man she's seduced? You think you'll be the last? You're just jealous because she chose someone younger. I'm angry because you both chose to betray me instead of being honest. There's a difference." Caleb tried to open the screen door, but I held it firmly closed. "You want to come inside and talk like adults? We can do that. But if you're here to threaten me or make demands, you can get off my property. This isn't over." "You're right. It's not." He stormed off, probably heading back to Ivy to report that his intimidation attempt had failed. Let them plot their next move. I was 3 steps ahead of them already. Thursday morning brought the best news yet. Peterson called to tell me that he'd evicted Caleb and Ivy from the apartment. "Noise complaints, property damage, and they were 3 days late with rent," he said. "Had to serve them papers this morning." "Sorry to hear that." "No, you're not, but that's okay. Some tenants aren't worth the trouble." I hung up and poured myself a celebratory cup of coffee. Ivy and Caleb were now homeless, jobless. Caleb had been fired from the warehouse for missing too many shifts, and rapidly running out of options. Time for the final phase. Friday afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk, all 3 of us. Tonight at 8, your house." It was from Ivy, probably using a borrowed phone since I'd blocked her number. The message had a desperate edge to it, like someone playing their last card. I texted back, "My house, my rules. You want to talk? You come alone." Caleb comes too, non-negotiable. Fine. Let them both come. Let them see what their betrayal had cost them and what it was going to cost them going forward. I spent the afternoon preparing, cleaned the house, organized my evidence files, set up a digital recorder in the living room. If they wanted a final confrontation, I'd give them one they'd never forget. At exactly 8 o'clock, they arrived. Ivy looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, unwashed hair, clothes that had seen better days. Caleb looked worse, like he'd aged 5 years in the past 2 weeks. I let them in but didn't offer them seats. This wasn't a social visit. "You wanted to talk?" I said. "Talk." Ivy glanced around the living room, probably remembering when she'd thought of this as her home. "We want to work something out." "What kind of something?" "A settlement, something fair for everyone." I almost laughed. "Fair? You think there's a fair way to resolve this?" Caleb stepped forward, trying to look tough. "You've done enough damage. Time to back off." "Damage? I haven't even started yet." "You got us evicted," Ivy said. "Cost Caleb his job. Turned the whole town against us." "I didn't do any of that. You did that when you decided to have an affair." "We're in love," she said, like that explained everything. "You're in lust. There's a difference." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You're 27 years old, married to a 45-year-old house painter, and you got bored. So you seduced my son because he was convenient and stupid enough to fall for it." Caleb's face reddened. "Don't talk about her like that." "Like what? Like a cheating wife? Like a woman who used my money to fund her affair? Like someone who destroyed my family for her own selfish gratification?" "She was lonely," Caleb said. "You ignored her, took her for granted." "And that justified sleeping with her?" That made it okay to betray your own father? You're not my father. You're just the guy who married my mom. The words hit like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. You're right. A real father would have raised you better. Ivy stepped between us before the situation could escalate further. Stop it. Both of you. Fighting won't solve anything. Then what will? I asked. Let us go, she said. Give me half the money from our accounts, sign over the car, and we'll leave town. You'll never see us again. And in return? We dropped the harassment charges we're planning to file. Now I did laugh. Harassment? For telling the truth about your affair? For stalking us, interfering with our employment, making false reports to our landlord. Prove it. Ivy pulled out a folder, probably prepared by some cut-rate lawyer. We have documentation, witnesses, a pattern of behavior designed to destroy our lives. Your lives were already destroyed. I just made sure everyone else knew it. We can take you to court, Caleb said. Sue you for everything you've got. With what money? You're both unemployed and homeless. The truth of that statement hung in the air like smoke. They'd played their last card, and it was a bluff. What do you want? Ivy asked quietly. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to know that betraying someone's trust isn't something you can just apologize for and move on. We get it, Caleb said. You've made your point. Have I? Because 2 weeks ago you thought you could screw my wife and I'd never find out. Last week you thought you could intimidate me into backing down. Today you think you can threaten me with lawsuits and harassment charges. Seems like you haven't learned anything at all. Ivy started crying. Big theatrical tears that might have moved me once upon a time. Now they just looked pathetic. Please, Darren, we have nowhere to go. You should have thought of that before. I'm pregnant. The room went silent. Ivy looked at me with desperate eyes, playing what she thought was her trump card. Congratulations, I said finally. Whose is it? Her face crumpled. How can you ask that? Because you've been sleeping with 2 different men. Seems like a reasonable question. It's Caleb's, she whispered. You sure about that? Because our divorce papers show we were still having closeness 6 weeks ago. Caleb looked sick. Probably just realized that his great love affair might have started with another man's child. It doesn't matter, Ivy said. I'm pregnant and homeless. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It means you should have made better choices. I walked to the front door and opened it. This conversation is over. You want to file harassment charges? Go ahead. You want to sue me? Knock yourselves out. But you're not getting a dime from me, and you're not getting my sympathy. Darren, get out, both of you. And don't come back. They left without another word, probably to spend the night in Ivy's car or some cheap motel. I watched them drive away, then poured myself a whiskey and sat in my quiet house. My phone rang an hour later. Gary. Heard you had visitors tonight. Word travels fast. You okay? I'm perfect. It's over, Gary. They've got nothing left to fight with. What's next? Nothing. They'll leave town, start over somewhere else, probably break up within 6 months when the reality of their situation hits them. And you? I go back to painting houses and living my life. Without them. I hung up and finished my whiskey. Outside, snow was starting to fall, covering the town in a clean white blanket. Tomorrow would be a new day, and for the first time in months, I was looking forward to it. Ivy and Caleb were someone else's problem now.